Hello everybody. So today we're going to be talking about something kind of strange and something you might not know is going on. I should probably cover up some of this stuff. Anyway, so I hurt my back several years ago at work. For 22 years I worked at an office, and you say, well, you worked at an office, how could you possibly hurt your back? Well, during that course, immediately my boss had me moving like these metal tree grates. You ever go to a park and they have these wrought iron things surrounding the trees that look like they weigh 100 pounds and they actually do? Well, my boss had them delivered to his house and said, hey, Dan, I got 1,300 pounds of stuff for you to move. Go over to my house. And I should have said no. So my first thing we're going to talk about is, and if you're at work, unless you're hired as a mover, and then even then, be reasonable. Don't let them kill you. But if you're like an office worker, and all of a sudden you find yourself asked to be doing heavy moving, just say no. Get fired. It's not going to be worth it, because believe me, for 22 years I said, sure thing, no problem. And then I hurt my back very badly. What culminated was like a 900 square foot room that had to be cleared out. And the person who was supposed to help me didn't show up 60% of the time. And my boss and the boss's wife were constantly hounding me, why is this thing not getting cleared out? And so they went on vacation, and then I had use of their truck. This guy, of course, doesn't show up to work. And so 2 days in a row of moving with a truck, which was stupid on my part. I'll be the first to tell you that. I should never have done that. I should have said, we need to hire movers. I'm not doing it. So there again, say no. Just say no. Just say no to drugs. Just say no to moving. So anyway, I hurt my back very badly, and I got a herniated disc in my lower L4, L5, and they called it a sprain, although it was showing up in a medical image taken 1.5 years after the injury, so I don't know why they call it a sprain. It was basically a bulge into the spinal cord. So in my thoracic, I also have damage. So anyway, I settled my case for future medical, which means that they're supposed to take care of my injury throughout my entire life. And I have a 20% permanent disability. So after I signed that stuff, I was fired, like, immediately. And he said, sorry, I don't have a position for you. And a lot of other things, we'll not get into that because there's something going on with that. But anyway, so I get fired from my job, and I think I'm going to have future medical. And so I've been working at my little company and taking care of the kids, and that's what I've been doing. So I go to use my future medical, and you're given this doctor's list of doctors who won't actually see you. So you're given this huge list, and it looks like there's 30 doctors within 20 miles that'll be happy to see you. And you start going down the list and contacting them, and they say, sorry, I can't see you. Sorry, I don't want to see you. We don't do that. And so month after month, I'm going through with the insurance adjuster, what's going on, what's wrong with this list here. So in the state of California, you can file something called a declaration of readiness to proceed. So first of all, I'll tell you, I'm an unrepresented worker. I didn't see any reason to hire an attorney, and I couldn't see, for the amount of money involved, any attorney spending any amount of time on my case. So I didn't do an attorney, and the forms are relatively simple, and the system is designed that a person can represent themselves. So it's called Declaration of Readiness to Proceed, and if you go on the Workers' Comp of California website, you can find it. So I'm supposed to be getting future medical as part of my settlement. I did not just sign off for cash, because I need help. I really hurt my back, and I really need help every once in a while when things hurt. Because sometimes you feel okay, and sometimes you feel pretty terrible, almost as bad as when you first hurt yourself. So anyway, I file the Declaration of Readiness to Proceed, and I go before the judge. This was just yesterday, and it was a mixed experience. I mean, the judge can only do so much. Judge was a very nice person. Can't have any complaint about the judge. Was very reasonable, personable, and that went well. So I show up. And I'll say show up prepared. And when you are talking back and forth with your insurance adjuster, don't do it on the phone. Send emails. Everything needs to be an email. You need to have documentation. I asked my insurance adjuster to transfer my care to a doctor. I sent another email, another email, another email, and it took two months. So between here and here, it took 2 months. That's an unreasonable amount of time. These are the kind of things you need to be able to document. So you'll see here, I used to work for a construction consulting firm, and I helped an expert witness get ready for trial for 20 years. So this is what we do. These are all exhibits. I'm going to take the judge's name off of there and my name off of that. Okay. So I went through and went to the trouble of tagging every single one with an exhibit with the assumption that I was going to be heading to trial. And you know what? I would say I showed up with this, and the judge took one look at it and says, I don't want that. And I said, how about, would you like my beautiful summary that I put together? No, I don't want that. I'll listen to what you have to say. So, but at least, you know, I showed up and he saw that I did my homework and I came there for business. And the attorney saw that I did my homework and I came there for business. That was important. So anyway, long story short, where am I going with this? That's what's going on in my life, and it takes up a lot of time and energy, and it's very frustrating. But what I will say is it can be done, and I kind of came to an epiphany of how you can fight the system by using the system. The same things that they think that they're using against you are actually their weaknesses. So we're going to start talking about that. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert. So any advice I give you or anything, I'm not giving you any advice at all. Let's just say that. I'm telling you what I'm doing. So this is kind of like a video log of my making my way through the workers' compensation system. So I have a settled case. I had 2 MRIs. I had spinal experts sign off on the MRIs as being damage and permanent damage. That's never going to get better. So what happens in the workers' compensation system? Once you're actually able to find a doctor, so that's a good for you, you actually found a doctor. So every time the doctor prescribes something for you, let's say they say you need to go get some acupuncture. You don't just get to go get acupuncture because the doctor says so. It goes to something called a UR, and UR stands for utilization review. So this is the first thing I'd like to talk about. In the state of California, you have people who are, you know, my injuries in California and my utilization review got sent off to a doctor in Texas. So my doctor asked for tests to be done, and they were neurological tests to prove how much level of nerve damage down the leg. And it's a 2-part test. And they're listed separately, but they're like twins. And they can't be pulled apart because this test is useless without this test, and this test is useless without this test. So a neurologist would understand it's either yes, you agree to both of them, or no, you say no to both of them. So what happened was, there's a company called Mitchell International Inc. in Texas, who I guess is part of it because they're on the cover here, and they put together a package. And the first thing you'll notice about the package is anytime they deny something, they give you an envelope. And I've already corrected it on here, but they had an error, and I actually asked the judge, there's a stipulation, and it's going to be against their court order, not a court order, but they're stipulating they will do this as part of the settlement. Thousands and thousands of these were being sent off to the wrong address. So when you make a challenge, it's supposed to go off to something called Maximus Federal Services, Inc. in Sacramento, California, which is part of the Department of Workers' Compensation. They had an error in the zip code, so anybody, you know, I didn't use this foldable envelope, I used a real envelope, but what I did was I cut out and I used that as a handy label, and it had an error in the zip. So you only have 35 days, and most people are, you know, busy, procrastinate. Let's say you waited 2 weeks to mail it off. With the wrong zip, having it go to Texas, how long would it take for the U.S. Postal System, if ever, to figure out that there's no Sacramento, California in Texas? Because all these are by machine, right? It goes in front of a machine sees the zip code, boom, that letter's going off to Texas. In Texas, it arrives and they're like, wait a second, this is for Sacramento, California. That's not the right zip. And you hope somebody now by hand will have to redirect that, and now you've probably missed your window of opportunity to complain. That's number one. So that's a court order now that they're going to have to take care of that. We'll give them a month or two, and then I'll file another declaration of readiness to proceed saying that they have not complied with the terms of our settlement. And so that's the whole thing you have to do, because now they have to hire an attorney, and the attorney is getting paid like $300 an hour to go show up in court. So they requested treatments from me. It went off to Texas. It went off to Texas, and it should have been in front of a neurologist. A neurologist should be making rulings on neurological testing because they understand it. Instead, it went to an orthopedist, and an orthopedist doctor made an uninformed decision. So somebody at Unimed Direct in Richardson, Texas, says they get to a test, and they obviously clearly don't understand the test, right? Because these are twinsy tests. You either say no to all of it or yes to all of it, even though they're two separate tests being asked for. So what do? They demonstrate their ignorance. And they approve half of the test and deny half of the test. So I make the appointment. Somebody calls me up and says, you've been approved for your test. I show up, and the doctor looks at the approval and says, what is this? And he looks at the doctor and says, oh, this person's an orthopedist. No wonder they don't know what they're doing. So my treatment in California is being mailed off to a doctor in Texas without any of my medical records. That was the other fun part. You know, I have something called a QME, Qualified Medical Examiner, and they do a report and supplemental reports. And when you have future medical, they outline what your future medical should look like. So this person in Texas who's never seen me is making rulings on what's medically necessary for me without any of my medical history. So you know what I'm going to do? There's a Texas medical board, and I'm going to file a complaint against this person's medical license because somebody in Texas who's an orthopedist gets a neurological test, doesn't say, I don't understand this, I cannot rule on this, and hand it off. No, they collected a fee, demonstrated their ignorance by approving half of the test, and so, boom, you know how you fight the system? Complaint against the medical license. You find out who owns the company. It's going to be a doctor. You make a complaint against their medical license. You go to the Texas, whatever, Better Business Bureau. And then maybe even you find the Attorney General's office and you let them know they have doctors making rulings on patients in California without medical records. And that's how you shut this down. The next thing I do, in 3 minutes, 7 on your side in San Francisco opens up. And I'm going to let them know because it's going to be, that's a really interesting article. So you're telling me patients in California are having their medical treatments ruled on by doctors in Texas who are not even the right specialty and don't even have the medical records, and yet they're making rulings. And then I called up this place, Unimed Direct, and spoke with the receptionist, and she says, well, you just have to file a challenge. I said, no, how about you fix this right now? And she says, no, we don't do that. So you know what? That receptionist bought you a complaint against your medical license. So there you go. So I have 3 different reviews. I'm going to file 3 separate complaints against this person's medical license. One for the neurological test and the fact that they made a ruling on testing they don't understand and without medical records. And there was 2 other utilization reviews in which they made rulings which maybe were within their realm of expertise, but they did it without any medical records in front of them. So how can you make any decisions about a patient? So what happens is they get a recommendation from a doctor, and unless they say, well, let me have the medical history on this person, it looks to that doctor like it's somebody just showing up and making all kinds of complaints and asking for all kinds of treatments out of the blue. But they never bothered to see if you had a medical history. So anyway, what do you do to fight the system? So they send me a denial. Now, all I have to do is inside of this thing is 1 page where I just have to sign 1 little signature and a date, make a photocopy of all this stuff, and I mail that off. And that's called an IMR, an independent medical review. And the IMR is going to cost the insurance company $400. So each one of these separate URs gets a separate IMR. So you see how you begin to fight the system. So you go to your doctor, and I would say go to your doctor every month. They're not giving you medical treatment that you deserve, go every month and have the doctor prescribe treatments. They're going to go off for UR. So what we're going to do is each one of these is going to get sent off for IMR. Now this company, Mitchell, also has a voluntary 30-day review. So the first time it comes through, you do that. So you file the IMRs for the first time, and you also ask for an independent internal review. Then you're going to get a second set of URs with the denials. On one of them, they gave me, like 10% of the physical therapy treatments prescribed. So I'm going to fight that one again. So I get to file another IMR. So, one of these is silly. It was like a urine tox screening because I go there and I'm prescribed muscle relaxers. And, I don't take them very often. And the only reason I was there was actually to renew an expired prescription. So I still had like a ton of expired pills left because I don't take them very often. They're very powerful. And you have to break them in little tiny pieces unless you're really hurt, because the next day you're going to be like a zombie. So that's a problem with muscle relaxers, and that's why they're very serious drugs and you need to not abuse them. But they're critical when you're in absolute pain and you take one before you go to bed and you wake up and sometimes you'll actually feel fantastic again. So you take like a handful of ibuprofen, a quarter of a muscle relaxer, and go to bed. A half of a muscle relaxer and go to bed. You're going to be really groggy the next day, but you're going to be recharged, and your back will hopefully be back to where it was. Whatever your baseline pain level is, it'll be back to the low level. So anyway, you get the UR, immediately file your IMR. You only have 35 days, and don't be intimidated. You get this big package, and if you read through it carefully, all you have to do is sign one little tiny signature and a date. Everything's already been filled out for you because that's part of the IMR. They're supposed to make it easy for you. Now what you do need to do is check the provided mailing envelope, because there's a good chance, and I'd be really curious if people could leave comments who are in the workers' compensation system in different insurance companies and tell me if there are errors on the label. Because if, let's say you have AmTrust or Allstate, or I don't even know if they even do workers' comp, but let's say all the different insurance companies, and we all through the comments find out that all of our labels have an error, we need to tell the media and we need to tell the legislature of California, look at that clever little trick. They made one little error in the zip, and 90% of these never make it to where they need to make it on time. So I'd be curious, leave a comment if the label included has any errors. So what do? You look at the label, and usually the page in front of it, I should say 2 pages in front of it, should have the address. And even go online and double check that against the real address. Because if there's any errors there, that's going to send your IMR, independent medical review, to the wrong place. So that's what I'm doing. And that's how you turn what they think is their strength, the fact that they're delaying your medical care. But what you do, and it's going to take you a few months to actually start to get your medical treatments, but go to the doctor every month, get your treatments, because the doctor's going to see it was denied, resubmit it, get the UR, fill out the page, get it sent off immediately, don't procrastinate, ask for the IMR. That costs the insurance company $400 a pop, and each one of these is $400, $400, $400. I ask for the independent medical review. So then I get another set of URs with another set of denials, and it had IMR sheets. So I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and fill them out and send them off, because that might be another $400, $400. So eventually what you do is hopefully the insurance company begins to say, you know what, it's cheaper to actually give them the medical treatments instead of running them around a tree. And so maybe we just start giving them the medical treatments, because these people are figuring out they can send all this stuff off costing us $400, $400, and then I get the IMR back. If I'm not happy with that IMR, I figure out how to go before the judge and challenge the decision, because I have the QME reports. And the judges are there to help you. They're there to determine benefits. And if you are truly injured, and please, if you're not hurt, don't do it. Because I ran into so many roadblocks of the doctors assuming that you're lying to them when you're really hurt, and that's really frustrating. And that's because there's probably plenty of people who are really lying. So anyway, stop lying. We need to get the system working, and the people who are really hurt need to get the help. So this is what you do. This is what I've been up to. This is part of the reason I haven't been doing any videos lately, is I was preparing for Reggae on the River, and I was putting this together times 4 because I needed an original copy, one for the judge, one for me, and I needed, not as nicely, just the blank pages, just in case I had to submit that to the other side's attorney. So it can be done. I have the advantage of, I worked in the legal field for a lot of years. Even though I was just a secretary, you absorb things. I put together these binders that went to court for 20 years, and now it becomes very easy for me to document things and do everything by email. So let's summarize. Whenever you speak with your insurance adjuster, don't do it on the phone. If they continually call you and don't want to respond to emails when they call you, say, I can't talk to you, please send me an email. I sent you an email, you need to respond to me by email. I need documentation of what's going on. So all of this was not for naught, because I filed declaration of readiness to proceed, and that's one thing. Now what I'm going to do next is file another declaration, and that declaration will be for penalties. So this beautiful, I don't know, I want to show the person's name here. The insurance adjuster really screwed up for month after month after month, and I have like 4 separate acts that delayed my treatment by months. So I put that together. This is now going to be my submittal to the request for penalties. And the judge said, penalties these days are hardly anything, but you know what? If it's $5, I'm going to send it in. I'm going to go to the trouble to let the insurance company know every time you delay my care, I'm going to fight it through the IMRs, I'm going to fight it through the judges, and I'm going to fight it. And just fight, fight, fight. And you know what? Hopefully you'll be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. And maybe even better, they'll figure out that it's just cheaper in the long run to actually get you the medical treatments. Because, for example, like I was talking about, that one of these is a urine tox screening, which I think is completely reasonable. You go to the pain management place, and they're going to give you a muscle relaxer. They should know that you're not a complete drug addict, strung out on fentanyl and every other opioid drug or whatever, before they give you more drugs. So they run my tox screening, see you have clean urine, okay, you don't even have muscle relaxer in your system, okay, we have no trouble giving you more muscle relaxer. You show up with expired pills, clearly you were able to make this last 3 years and you still have pills that are just expired. So these are the kind of things you need to do. So where am I going with that? A urine tox screening, it's like a $30 bottle with a whole bunch of strips on it. You pee in the bottle, and it lights up if you have drugs in you. They said they denied it. I filed the IMR, that's $400. And I also challenged it through an internal review, and now I get another UR still denying it. That's a second IMR, I think. That might be $800 that's going to cost the insurance company because they're denying my medical care, which they agreed to in my future medical settlement. And they saw what the QME report said and what I was entitled to, and now they don't want to provide it. So how do you fight the system? They're going to pay $800 denying urine screenings. And I'm even going to challenge it with the judge and say the pain management had every right to check my urine to make sure they weren't going to be killing me by giving me drugs because I was a raging drug addict or something. Completely reasonable. So I'm going to take that to the judge, and over a silly urine screening, they're going to have to hire an attorney now. And so this $40 bottle of urine screening is going to cost them $2,000. And I'm making YouTube videos out of it. So it's like a business for me now. So it's beautiful. Figure out how to make it work. There was a guy, what was it, Hunter Thompson? Is it Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? He had a saying, the author of that, buy the ticket, take the ride. I bought the ticket. I spent 22 years moving stuff, hurt myself terribly, thought I was signing off for future medical to take care of all the needs I would have in the future, and they're not providing it. So you know what? I have every right to fight that as much as I want. And so now I've looked at their system, and what they think is a strength, which is these URs, is their biggest weakness, because every one of these is going to cost them $400 by just signing and mailing it off. So it costs you a stamp, and it's going to cost them $400. And then when they deny it, you then have the right to take that before a judge, and they're going to pay $300 an hour to have an attorney come and represent it. And the judge is probably going to approve the treatment. So where's the problem? Your treatments are going to take months. You're going to have to suffer, right? I'm used to suffering. Believe me. So you're going to have to suffer it out. It's going to be a few months of getting a bunch of these in the queue, in the IMR, and then you're going to have to go fight it with the judge maybe if the IMR comes back and it's not in your favor. But eventually, in a few months, you're going to start to get your treatments, and you're going to have them queued up, because it's not an agile system. You don't get to show up to the doctor and say, I'm in horrible pain, I need acupuncture, I need to go to a physical therapist and have them electrocute my back, kill the nerve a little bit. And there's all these things that they can do to help you, but this system is not agile. You don't get to just show up and get treatment. You show up, and if you're lucky, 4 months later, you got the treatment that you should have had 4 months previous. And now you even feel better, and you're getting treatment that you maybe didn't even need now. Anyway, it's ridiculous, but my theory is acupuncture is kind of a continual thing, constantly helping you. There's all kinds of electrical stimulation out there. If you have nerve damage, as long as you don't go too high, I can't do it on my thoracic injury because I'm afraid, there's a small potential that you can give yourself a heart attack. But if you have injuries that are not away near the heart cavity, and run everything by a doctor, I'm not an expert, there's something called TENS. It's a transcutaneous electrical neural stimulation, and they have these little kind of soft pads with electrodes, and you stick them to your skin, and you plug them into a machine, and it kind of gives you high frequency shocks. And it's anything from a little tingle to, if you really turn it up, it'll actually get to the point where it's painful. But anyway, and it's also called interferential. And interferential is how you put them. You have, let's say you have 4 pads. You have 2 up here and 2 up here. You connect these 2, so the electricity is going this way. These 2, electricity is going this way. The interferential is the interfering wave, so you have it going this way and this way. It's creating now a cross interfering wave this way and that way, and so you have an enormous area getting affected by the electrical stimulation. This video is getting really long, but people who are fighting workers' comp are going to watch it. So I wanted to throw that out there. Electrical stimulation really works. It's worth doing. It's not something you do just once. You literally have to do it. I buy the electrode gel, which is like a conductive fluid that helps it get into the skin so you don't get like a burn basically on your skin from the electricity. And you sit there for 45 minutes or an hour, and you do it several treatments. And then you do it for a series, and then you stop. Because the other thing I've read is it increases blood flow. The bad side effect of increasing blood flow is if you have a tumor in that area, you're also increasing blood flow to the tumor and potentially growing cancer at a much quicker rate than it would have otherwise have grown. That's the two, what do they call them? Contradictions, I think. If you go too high up in the cavity, it's potentially you can give yourself a heart attack. And then the other thing is, you can give yourself electrical burns. Anyway, so look into it. I'm going to wrap it up here because it's way too long. But fight the system. Fight the power. Public enemy. Fight the power. So anyway, do all this. It's all within your legal rights. I had the attorney try to flip the script on me and say, you're harassing my client, this and that. And I flipped the script right back on him, and I said, you know what, don't you dare intimidate me, and I'm going to pursue my legal rights. And you know what? Your client wouldn't even be here if I was getting my medical care. So you want to make it all go away? Give me the medical care that you agreed to in the settlement. So I'm not doing anything wrong. Go fight for your rights. Don't get pushed around. It's real easy. It takes a couple hours here, a couple hours there. This took, probably a good solid week. But I did it over a period of time. And now I have it. And now I have all of it documented. And so if I have problems in the future, I go before a judge and I can say, see, this is not the first time. This is constantly being done. So anyway, wrap it up right there. That's what I've been up to. This has been taking a ton of my time and energy. I went up to reggae and I was literally exhausted because I had I had reggae. So I'm preparing for this and reggae. I go up to reggae, which is a camping and music festival, and it takes a lot out of you. You have to set up camp, and it's a lot of walking around, and but it's a great time. And then I get there, and I just basically, they didn't have music all day long, so I slept an awful lot, which was awesome. So, but I really wound myself up all over this, and that's what I've been doing my energy on. So anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Fight the good fight. Notify your representatives. I think that's my next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start petitioning the state of California representatives and know exactly how broken the system is. I can probably unequivocally say this system is probably worse than the VA. And the reason the VA gets more attention is because veterans have life-threatening injuries that they die of. Whereas most of these, you just suffer and you're in pain. And you just suffer and you're in pain, but you're not going to die because you have a back injury or you have other injuries like that, and they're not life-threatening. So people don't hear about it, but I would say the delays to find care, get treatment, are every bit as worse as the VA, maybe even worse, because it's an insurance company with here, there, everywhere that doesn't want to pay. So I've gone way over on my time here, but we're going to leave it there. Fight the good fight. If everybody fights a good fight, then maybe the insurance companies would actually just decide it's cheaper to just give you the medical treatment than to fight giving you the medical treatment. So that's what we're going for, and we're going to try to put them on their back until they decide, you know what, it's cheaper for us, Dan, to actually just give you the medical care we agreed to. So keep fighting.